Hey guys, how's it going? Name's kgohpro Kev, and I'm here with more of a serious video than what most of you are probably accustomed to on my channel. For those not in the know, the game Somnium Files, which was headed by Zero Escape creator Kotaro Uchikoshi, recently got massively review bombed on the review site Metacritic. Similar to how Blizzard's Warcraft 3 remaster, Warcraft Reforged, got downvoted heavily due to controversy, Somnium also became the target of a directed effort, going all the way down from an 82 average to a score of 1.9 out of 10. Articles on different sites, a Reddit thread, and one on the site Reset Era, which Uchikoshi himself tweeted out, began popping up detailing the situation. But no one really knew what was the definitive cause for the sudden attack. There was speculation on Reddit that the cause for this was an explicitly pro-LGBTQ scene that occurs stemming from the character Mizuki, in which she states her respect and admiration for members of the LGBT community, and assumed the culprits of the mass review bombing to be anti-LGBT, homophobes, right-wingers, etc. In actuality, as it later came to light, the situation was masterminded by a singular person, a guy who frequented the Reset Era forums, whose motives for instigating this are rather complex. According to him, Metacritic's system for taking reviews into account was inherently flawed, being incredibly easy to manipulate a game's scoring, citing the Warcraft Reforged controversy as an example of this, and wanted to expose the brokenness of the system by showing how easy it is to make any game have an alpha rating on the site, selecting Somnium Files to be the victim of this experiment. His reason for doing so goes a bit deeper, as the guy has a major dislike for the game, which he's made well known to his peers, but despite this, has a self-proclaimed unhealthy obsession with the character Aset, or Tessa, a VTuber/idol from the game, who was heavily featured in promotional material. According to him, he hated how the game treated her, and thus decided to spend hours review bombing the game, with the intent to not only showcase Metacritic's problems, but in turn to also spite the game, its fanbase, and its creators for not catering to his staunch love for the character from the IP in question. Those are the SparkNote versions of the events that transpired, which I plan to delve into in depth. I've compiled all the details of the case, and I also have a friend who knows the culprit, and was able to give me quite a bit of insight into the whole thing. This is also to help spread awareness for both the game itself and for those that are out of the loop, as the review bombing itself is very regrettable, especially for a niche game like this, and a developer who has a ton of passion for his work. I have yet to play Somnium myself, but those of you who know me know that I'm a huge fan of Uchikoshi's work, primarily the Zero Escape series, 999, Virtue's Last Reward, and Zero Time Dilemma. Those games are highly underappreciated. The stories are really damn good, the characters rich in personality, it's just all super finely crafted. I can't sing praises for Uchikoshi and his team's efforts enough. Daily reminder to play Zero Escape, by the way. As an aside, I also just found out Uchikoshi worked on Pepsi Man, so he's even more of a legend than we initially thought. The more I looked into all this and the more info I received, the story and motivations, just everything kept getting really just more and more interesting, and in a way has parallels to Somnium Files itself. But we'll get to all of that. So yeah, with all that said, we'll begin tackling and making sense of what occurred during the review bombing of Somnium Files. To begin, the identity of the review bomber, we will be keeping his name anonymous, blurred out in the pictures and everything like that, as to not give him attention and as a measure to prevent further harassment. As an alternative, we'll be referring to the review bomber as such, alongside calling him the culprit, and also by the name Dio, a character from the Zero Escape series who is most definitely the bomb. And let me stop any potential Dio X Aset shipping that may come from this right here and now. Too late. When Dio first began attacking the game, again, people weren't able to pinpoint the exact reasons as to the origin of this sudden surge of negativity. Unlike Warcraft, which not only is flooded with controversy, came out in late January, so it's very much fresh in people's minds at the moment. Somnium has been out since September of last year for all regions. You would think that any issues people had surrounding the game would have surfaced or been snuffed out by this point. It is a niche game, so maybe knowledge of the disputed aspects could have just reached a wide enough audience. But again, with how niche the game is, a rallied attack on it from multiple people is highly unlikely. Reddit was one of the main outlets for the controversy to surface, and there, the narrative of this being the work of people who have issues with the LGBTQ elements present in the game was formed, and then adopted and accepted elsewhere. In terms of LGBT representation, the game has a gay relationship between two characters and a trans character, but the main focal point that people got up in arms about was a scene in which the character Mizuki expresses her appreciation for LGBT folks and the community, stating, "The LGBT community is rich in sensibility, has excellent taste, and is full of talented, artistic people, and they share a common struggle. It makes them more sensitive and capable of sympathy. That's why so many of them are kind and caring, and they choose how to live their lives on their own terms. It means they have a strong backbone, so because of all that, I really respect them. They're even kinda cool." Even though the culprit instigated his plan without opinions related to LGBT in mind, being the internet, the narrative created over the review bombing's intentions being anti-LGBT opened the floodgates for actual anti-LGBT people and internet trolls to weaponize the situation and make the speculation become reality, joining in on attacking iSomnium on Metacritic, and also claiming that the game is overtly woke, cramming SJW agendas down people's throats, and expressing distaste over what's being presented. Now, again, I haven't had the chance to fully delve into and experience the game myself as of yet. I've only played the demo, but I've talked to multiple people who have played and completed it about how the LGBT elements are portrayed. And according to them, they're not in your face about them. Not at all preachy, especially compared to, say, some of the overtly progressive-leaning content from sources like Netflix. Point by point in order, starting with the gay relationship, it is apparently very subtle. The character involved doesn't have it as one of the main defining aspects about him, and from one account, more so comes across as a mentor-student type bond, his sexuality only being confirmed in an optional text box near the end of the game. The trans character, known as Mama, is another one whose entire existence doesn't revolve around her being trans, but it being just another aspect of her character. She is flamboyant by nature, but because that's a part of her personality, and not because of being created just to be a token rep. She's also down to earth and sympathizes with what the characters in the game experience, and overall is written realistically as a genuine person with positives and flaws who makes an impact in the story. As for the Mizuki scene that people are riled up over, notably, the scene is taken out of context, as the intention of the scene was not to sing praises for LGBT or portray them as more enlightened, but rather to highlight Mizuki's character, who, despite being a 12-year-old girl, is shown to be very wise and mature for her age, akin to a Japanese anime version of Lisa Simpson. While I can see from the onset, it appears the game shoehorned in a random speech about respecting LGBTQ, most of the comments you see from people criticizing the game for its apparent wokeness, again, do so by jumping to conclusions and not bothering to acquire a legit frame of reference. Uchikoshi is adept at inserting themes of this nature into his writing subtly, which is also notably risky, as Japan is historic for having issues with implementing LGBT themes into media. The Mizuki scene, in fact, also isn't a translation change. The original Japanese script is more or less the same. For me, which applies with everything, the effectiveness of how anything is portrayed all depends on the aim of the creator. LGBT elements are prevalent in real life, and are going to be in forms of media, and can either be written well or be used cheaply in an attempt to pander to the target audience. For iSomnium, the controversy presents it as the latter instead of the former, with the message in itself also one that, whichever way it's being interpreted, is incredibly harmless, and doesn't try to express notions of superiority or anything of the sort. So to get provoked over such an overtly positive sequence, context or not, is rather absurd to me. People be people though. And you're always gonna get individuals that'll latch onto any chance they get to spread distaste for things they disagree with, making things all political and, again, whether the point in question really calls for it. As the narrative of anti-LGBT sentiments persisted, folks on forums like Reddit and, most importantly, Reset Era continued to discuss their findings in their respective threads and the incident at large. Most went along with the statements given, which is where the culprit comes into the picture, to clear up the misconceptions and make his complex motives known. Post number 128 on the Reset Era thread, the culprit, Dio, demonstrates his findings after allegedly doing an investigation into the incident, including a highly detailed account of the events and factors relating to its conceivement, and asserts that the Metacritic review bombing wasn't the product of LGBTQ backlash, but rather a case of a singular person deliberately manipulating the numbers in order to express the broken nature of the site, including specific timestamps and images that depict the review score's descent. What was also shown, which before his postings went undiscovered, was that these scores for other Spike Chunsoft games had also been manipulated and were tied to the attack on iSomnium, with key clues and hints hidden in the reviews for them. These two games are even more obscure than iSomnium itself, one of which being an old DSiWare title, and were allegedly mediocre, but from this manipulation had become the two highest rated user-reviewed games created by Spike Chunsoft on the site. The first game, Crystar, had named iSomnium in its writing, and lambasted its treatment of its character Aset throughout the game. The second, the DSiWare title, Metal Torrent, had a sole review created, in which lied a hidden message. Taking the first letter of each paragraph would spell out Aset, and the username the review belonged to was the name of a spoiler related to iSomnium Files. Dio basically inadvertently or intentionally outed himself and his entire strategy, possibly wanting it to be known he was the one who kickstarted the whole controversy, as he was infamous among the forum and the fandom for hating the game immensely and for having an unhealthy obsession with the character of Aset, as he self-proclaimed. People looked through his post history and confirmed this to be the case, and that this investigation was instead a roundabout confession, veiled as an inspection. While the pieces all fit together well, with the comprehensiveness and detail of his post being incredibly suspect, many were still skeptical about him being the culprit, not only because of the absurdity of it all, but also because the pieces fit a bit too well. That a person would make it so obvious that it was them, and also go out on this hours-long crusade to condemn such a niche game, sounds absolutely absurd. But it was the truth. Evidence by mutuals of Dio with screenshots from Discord surfaced, with him admitting in there his involvement, which was then later confirmed publicly by the person in question himself. He also went back to his initial post and edited it to confirm his involvement in creating the controversy. As cliched as it is, the criminal indeed always returns to the scene of the crime. To illustrate some background for Dio and his character, we are going to be talking about him and his infatuation with Aset. As I mentioned before, a friend of mine alongside friends of his know of Dio and have interacted with him in mutual Discord servers in the past. His behavior can be described as iffy. He had made his hatred of I well known to people, and expressed his vitriol for it publicly as well. On multiple iSomnium-related Discord servers and forums, he can be found trash-talking the game. iSomnium's main character, Kanami Date, Dio absolutely despises. He dislikes how Date often engages in perverted behavior, which not uncommon in Japanese works, certainly not Uchikoshi's. I'd liken him to that of Sigma from Zero Escape Virtue's Last Reward. The main thing to note is that Date's behavior isn't considered acceptable, as he gets called out for his degeneracy by the other characters. Of course, one of the main reasons the culprit dislikes the game is the supposed lack of focus on Miss Idol, Aset, a girl who, despite not being the main character, is still a major focus of the plot. But his devotion to Tessa is the driving force behind all of his actions. As stated by him, he developed a crush on Aset due to her appealing to him and for he himself having attachment issues. Dio had been enamored with Aset since the very beginning. Aset's profession is that of an idol/VTuber, and can be considered the mascot/face of iSomnium. As promotional material, the developers of the game created official Twitter accounts and a series of videos on YouTube hosted by her, which served as an ARG, an alternate reality game, that required one to read in between the lines to find hints/details for what's to come. The ARG videos are what got the culprit hooked on the game initially, with how charismatic Aset was and the way it was presented to him. He became devout watching the videos and followed the official Aset Twitter accounts, which he became infamous amongst his circles for actively, obsessively commenting and responding to posts created, proclaiming himself to be Aset's #1 fan. An interesting thing to note is that there's a character within iSomnium Files named Ota, a 24-year-old NEET who is just as staunch of a supporter of Aset as Dio is in real life. This character also had a Twitter account created for him to tie into the ASET ARG, which Dio himself had an encounter with during the early promotion for the game in 2019, where the two of them interacted trying to see who truly was ASET's #1 fan. The culprit has stated that he has a connection to Ota, being birds of a feather, and also disliked the reception the character has received from the fandom. Uchikoshi and his dev team had created an idol waifu character whose charm had transcended the screen. Spawning an in-game devote fanboy, reality ends up emulating art, and creates an Ota in real life, who is arguably even more obsessive than the character appearing in-game. While the appearances ASET had in the promotional material were what got Dio interested in the game, when the game finally released and the plot became known, he despised how the game treated his beloved Tessa, as he states, like utter garbage. The main point of contention for him is that the game's plot had nothing to do with the promotional videos involving ASET that he fell in love with during the pre-release. That it was, in a way, false advertising due to ASET not being the main focal point, and that the game took dark turns, especially for his beloved character. Details of her story through the game I've shied away from to avoid spoilers, but according to my friends, who also summarized what points Dio hated the most, she definitely goes through a traumatic time throughout. The game is rated M for mature, and anyone familiar with the rating, the genre, and Uchikoshi's work, which the culprit is, as he played Zero Escape previously, characters will go through trials and tribulations, often of a dark nature, and end up developing over the course of the plot. His gripes are also a bit odd, because many of the videos that he adored for their bubbly aesthetic are creepypasta-esque, in that they appear cutesy on the outset, but have details that suggest that there's more disturbing undertones to it all than what's just seen on the surface. Take one look at the polar bear video, for instance. That should tell you about all, what you need, to expect from the game. What I find interesting is that his infatuation with Tessa's character was during these pre-release videos, which are, in a way, a satirical version of real-world web idols. In the actual game, you see the character behind the persona, and she goes through a transformation that gives her depth beyond what's depicted in the videos. ASET's persona was what captivated him, but when the game put the real person through struggles that caused her to change, it was like he couldn't accept the reality of her not being his perfect depiction he had any longer. He truly became the real-life version of the obsessive fan Ota. The difference between Ota and this guy, though, is that Ota's obsession was for someone who was real in universe, but for Dio is a fictional character. An obsession so strong that he's willing to review bomb a game that did not cater to him for hours due to his devotion. Revealed to be the culprit, he attempted to frame his complex motives as a cause to expose how easily influenced the scoring system on Metacritic can be. He had created multiple accounts to pull off his plan. In the process of doing so, he learned that Metacritic security for preventing mass spam and vote manipulation was non-existent. When creating accounts, the site doesn't block temporary emails, would let in accounts hailing from the same IP address, and that when making a review, the site doesn't take any measures to confirm whether or not the person stating their opinion has actually played or owns the game they're discussing. He wanted to show that, with enough time and effort put in, any game could become the best or the worst review game on the site, which Somnium Files nearly was, due to the initial efforts of one guy. While Dio claims he wanted to showcase the flawed, broken system of Metacritic, crafting his own quasi-ARG, akin to ASET's to go about it, for him to specifically target Somnium Files for this social experiment, with the past he has with it, and the abhorrence he's expressed to others regarding it, the devs, and the fanbase, ulterior motives definitely seem to be in play. Complex, even. Keeping all the previous info in mind, it for sure feels more like a conscious, specific, directed effort to scorn all of the above for his devotion, and how the final product and more did not end up catering to his wishes. The situation, all in all, is indeed just unfortunate all around. Cancel culture, stan culture, mob mentality, and the mindset behind movements, all in this vein, are scary for how the actions of one person can blow up dramatically, and how willing people latch onto controversy and seek to ruin whatever subject is at hand, regardless of the validity. Somnium, as stated, is already incredibly niche, and for it to become the target of this wave of negativity does it no favors whatsoever. Not everyone looks to reviews before purchasing something, but it is true that a bad review score can be instrumental in influencing people's decisions. It is a mark that you don't want. a blemish that has the power to steer potential newcomers away. And for a game like this, it needs all the exposure it can get. I myself usually look to reviews from both critics and users to note the general consensus from both parties, and to help determine whether to splurge cash and then formulate my own proper opinion. It's just the right thing to do, especially within this current gaming/overall media climate. As the story was gaining notoriety as well, Kotaro Uchikoshi and assistant director Akira Okada ended up catching word of the whole ordeal. Needless to say, they were disappointed. Uchikoshi linked the thread on Twitter and reached out to fans and implored them to help attempt to undo the damage that had been dealt. Akira Okada is apparently the one who handles the Japanese ASET Twitter account, which Dio had obsessively interacted with. And when learning of this, the culprit felt sad about making him feel the bomb of despair he himself had set off. Your actions indeed have consequences. And through all this, he ended up hurting the creators of, and in turn, the one he loved. Again, it's completely unfair for an event of this caliber to happen to Uchikoshi and his team. Imagine being the developers, or anyone that devotes time and effort into creating something you truly care about, only for some guy with a warped sense of reality to give it 200+ negative reviews, just cause his waifu did not get enough screen time. It's like the weeaboo version of Stephen King's Misery. And then later for other people to weaponize that and strike you down even further, losing you probably tons of cash and also garnering lots of negative publicity in the process. It's just really sad. Especially for it to happen to Uchikoshi, who not only is passionate, super passionate for what he does, but is an all-around good guy. A thing that I have that I'd like to showcase, which probably the majority of iSomnium players haven't seen, is the forward message that Uchikoshi included in the art book that came with the special edition of the game, as it really helps to showcase how much of a treasure the guy is. Forward. The Somnium Files is a completely new original title. It's not a sequel or a spin-off. It's not based on a manga or light novel, and it doesn't use pre-existing characters. We created this from zero. The characters, the world, the story, the game system, all of it. It was like staring at a blank canvas, trying to draw a monster that you've never seen before. There was no easy answer. Of course, me being the director, an answer-ish thing existed inside me, but I didn't know if it was the correct one, to be honest. It was the staff of this project that taught me the right answer, as we worked on this game together. I think this is the first time that I relied on my team for so many creative parts of the game. Most of the game's moving parts, the zeros into ones, were ideas from the staff. That's why I see this project not as my game, but as our game. I want to thank them from the bottom of my heart. And I also want to thank you, who are holding this art book right now. That's me. I'm repeating myself. But this is a completely original title. You didn't know if this game would be fun at all, but you went ahead and bought it anyway. I would like to express my gratitude for your courage. But it's okay, don't worry. I promise this game will not disappoint you. When you reach the ending, you will realize that your decision was the correct answer. I in Japanese means love. I would like to present this game to you with all of my love. Thank you very much. Kotaro Uchikoshi. So, yeah. You can clearly see how much love he has for what he does and how grateful he is to fans and the people he works with, and to be able to make his dreams come to life. So, to see this happen to a guy like him, it's heartbreaking. He does it to us with his games, but regardless, yeah, no, it's just unfortunate. Thankfully, the story has a positive ending. During the course of all this, many folks came out of the woodwork to alleviate and better the damage that had been dealt. The hashtag, #ThankYouUchikoshi, was made on Twitter to help express love for the game, and for all that he's done. Uchikoshi's cry for help did not go unnoticed either. Supporters for the game came out in droves, and created on Metacritic positive reviews aplenty to help combat the negative ones. And as of right now, the negative reviews set by Dio and others have been removed from the site. But the positive ones persist and continue to roll in, and has reached the point where iSomnium Files became the highest rated user-reviewed Switch game. For a title like this to reach top billing, it truly is a sight to see. Justice has been served, karma truly is something, and everything is as it should be. And hey, who knows, maybe this is the bump that it and Uchikoshi needs to really start getting the recognition they deserve, or at least a good first step. It should be known that Zero Escape and Uchikoshi fans, we can basically be likened to a cult. I've introduced many people to Zero Escape, and then in turn, other works of his, an effort shared by a good number of people in my Discord server as well. Reminder to play Zero Escape once again. And everyone I know who's gotten the chance to experience the games absolutely adores them. For folks that I know and have seen, the news of it getting review bombed helped bolster their resolve and loyalty to stand by and support the game, and convinced people that were holding off on, or on the fence for the game, to buy it, both in support and in protest for this injustice. I myself have plans to stream the game on my channel for the month of February, but with everything that's transpired, it fills me with the motivation to do so even more now. A feeling for sure shared mutually amongst other fans. It filled me with the drive to help make things right, and to give the game the love and attention it truly deserves. Why do you think I'm making this video? There's a reason why we choose to stick by Uchikoshi's works, even though they're not able to appeal to everyone and garner mainstream popularity. They really are just something special. And indeed criminally underrated. A notion that you really don't get until you really go out and play them for yourself. These games get all my love. 999 sexy Junpei faces out of 10. It's good to know that things ended up working out in the end, and I'm sure the overwhelming support must make Uchikoshi eternally grateful. People have spread tons of positive vibes during the reviews and have sent them his way as well. And if anything, he also learned some new fun words from this experience, like jerk, bigot, dumb,
suck,
dick. You gotta wonder though, was it really worth it for Dio to do all this? Like, I guess he did achieve his goal in the end. He accomplished what he set out to do with Metacritic, which hopefully that does get fixed going forward. But he's also ostracized himself from the community with his behavior, which was the case before the incident, and now even more so. He has been banned from the Reset Era forum and the Somnium Discord servers he frequented. In a way, it's also all backfired on him, cause the game he abhors, the one that sparked this whole tirade, was able to bounce back, and is now more popular than before. As an onlooker, it's a neat character study. It is interesting to see how the actions of one person were able to set off such a wild chain of events. I'm sure he's learned that life is indeed simply unfair. But he continues to try and justify his actions, insists on playing the moral high ground, and has yet to issue any sort of formal apology. He clearly needs help. That much is certain. It doesn't need to be stated that the obsession he has with ASET is to an unhealthy degree, and spending such a large chunk of his time to prove a moot point against a subject he has a personal vendetta against is overall very selfish. If he really wanted to do this experiment, there were better ways to go about it. Help. He could have boosted the game's scores rather than attempt to diminish them, which he performed, as we saw, with his tampering of the two other Spike Chunsoft games. But he made the choice to deliberately go out of his way to target and tank Somnium, a decision that I can only describe as incredibly petty. He says he has attachment issues, which is unfortunate for him, but this does not justify him attempting to ruin the reputation of something else and in turn affect other people's livelihoods. Regardless of how one may feel, and whether causing distress was his intention or not, anyone who goes out of their way to the degree that he has, without the foresight and tact to stop himself, reaps what they sow, and will suffer the consequences of their actions. Again, everything worked out in the end. The positivity the game and Uchikoshi and his dev team received truly was the light at the end of this dark tunnel, and a real marvel of fan loyalty and support. It gave the game more needed exposure, and this ordeal can be considered a gateway for more people to play and experience Somnium, Zero Escape, and more of Uchikoshi's work. It's an accomplishment, definitely something to be proud about, and in all, an example of what genuine fan worship should be like. With that about covers all that went down during the Somnium Files review bombing. Thanks for watching. I hope you had fun, and found the whole thing as interesting as I did. And I also hope that I was able to keep you engaged/entertained detailing all the events of it. Like I said, I'm thrilled that all this ended in a positive way, and I do hope you'll consider supporting the game and more of Uchikoshi's work, especially if you were ignorant to all of it beforehand. There's always room for more people in the Zero Escape community. That's right, all three of us. But I digress. Like I said previously, I plan to finally play through Somnium Files proper, and will be streaming it on this channel during the month of February, once I return from Katsucon, and indeed, finally giving it the attention it deserves. So yeah, if you're intrigued, look forward to that. I played the demo a few months back, which I highly enjoyed, and I'll be publicizing that video not too long after this one goes up as well. Let me also give thanks to my friends, my wonderful, wonderful peeps that helped me to gather info for this video and gave me their accounts on stuff from the game. Gonna give thanks to anyone who helped to undo the damage done by Dio and showed their support for everything involved. And of course, I gotta give thanks to Uchikoshi and his cool team of homies. Mr. Uchikoshi, if you ever end up watching this video, which would be amazing considering the language barriers, I just wanna say you're an inspiration to myself and many others. Zero Escape is near and dear to my heart, and your games have a draw and approach that's unlike any other. You're a person with a legacy worthy of so much respect, and I hope to see you continue to engage myself and many more through your works of art in the future. So yeah, serious vid from me done, guys. After this, we'll be back to our usual cursed programming, though I may still make videos with this sort of tone compared to my usual bombastic self. Let me know what you guys think about that. Along with your opinion on this incident, do you guys sympathize with the culprit at all? Does it make you want to check out the game in retaliation? All that stuff. If you're new to my channel, first, how you doing? Second, yo, I'm kgohpro or Kev. If you like this vid, do consider subscribing, liking, and sharing, all that YouTuber stuff. I do a lot of videos relating to similar games in the genre like Danganronpa, Your Turn to Die, all the Moida games, lots of Nintendo stuff, and I also stream. So if that's your cup of tea, feel free to stick around. I'm also thinking about doing a vid on Zero Escape in the near future, so expect a vid on that to drop sometime later. Once again, a reminder to play Zero Escape and also Somnium Files, and with all that said, this is kgohpro or Kev, signing out. Hope to catch y'all later on anything else we do. Peace out for now.